Hi, hello. Thank you for inviting me. Now, I'm not, I'm a film student, so I'm not a philosopher, so I apologize in advance for maybe not to all the concepts here. Now, the title of my talk is How We Fight, and that is, of course, a pun on why we fight, on the famous series of Frank Capra's wartime documentaries that were produced by the United States government in order to build up the propaganda to the American people, to sell them why they should go and fight in Europe and in Asia. And it was a direct reply to Leni Riefenstahl's famous documentary films. Now, what I would like to discuss here is a different approach, not a serious approach to film propaganda and to how to talk about your enemy and how to say, oh, well, you know, they're bad guys and we're good guys. Instead, to see on the example of Lubitsch, to be or not to be, how the positions are reversed and how he does not talk about good guys and bad guys in that basic all-time paradigm, but he talks about them through comedy, of course, and mainly through using three basic mechanisms, which is auto-ironic stance, repetition, and ultimately humanization of the enemy, showing that the enemy is just as human as we are and just as faulty as we are. Of course, I'm going to run through this a bit because we are running a bit late. Some of these aspects were already touched at the very beginning of the Second World War in another movie by Charlie Chaplin, the great dictator, which is said to have been a direct response to Riefenstahl's movies. But still, the Chaplin there does not go so far in showing the humanity of the enemy and the auto-irony of ourselves, of the good guys. However, he does put some basic concepts there. As I said, Chaplin makes his movie at the very beginning of the Second World War, while Lubitsch makes his movie at the very beginning of the entrance of the United States into the World War. That is 2 years later, more than 2 years later, and at the moment where it seems that Hitler is invincible. He's at that moment spread across Europe, he's at the gates of Moscow, and it seems that nothing can really stop him. To me it seems very peculiar to choose at that moment to ridicule somebody who is the most powerful man on earth at that moment, and yet Lubitsch chooses precisely this line and says, okay, so let's see what's funny about them. While what Chaplin showed us as funny was the theatrics of Nazis and the way they walk, the way they're dressed, the way they talk, and all the outrageous pomposity of the parades and so on. Lubitsch goes into again into theater, but starts off with Nazis at the theater. In this one, let me just find the scene here. Also, what happens here in this scene is that the first of many themes that will get repeated throughout the film, and I'll try and show you some of the clips where that repetition keeps building up into more and more comic sense.
If you'd like to look into his record, I hope you'll talk.
You better. Send him in.
Yes. Wilhelm Kunze!
Wilhelm Kunze!
Wilhelm Kunze!
Heil Hitler!
Heil Hitler. And now then, I understand you want a little tank to play with, huh?
Yes, my father promised me one if I got a good report card.
But our Fuhrer heard about your report card and decided to give you just what you want.
Heil Hitler!
Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler!
You are going to tell your father who gave it to you, aren't you, Wilhelm?
Sure, sure.
And then maybe he will like the Fuhrer a little better, won't he?
Sure.
He doesn't like him now, does he, Wilhelm?
No, he doesn't.
And sometimes he even says funny things about him, doesn't he?
Well, he said they named a brandy after Napoleon, and they made a herring out of Bismarck, and Hitler's going to end up as...
A piece of cheese.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you know?
Well, it's a natural thought.
Oh, a natural thought.
Well, I hope you don't misunderstand. I always, well, that is, you see, we see, Colonel, I hope you don't doubt my... Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler!
Heil Hitler!
Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler!
Der Führer!
Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler! Heil myself. That's not in the script.
So we enter this film as if it were a real scene, proper Nazis and so on and so on. And gradually it just falls apart. We can say, we can make jokes about Hitler, but then not. And then even at the end he makes a joke about himself, the famous Heil myself, which was quoted in many times later. So this first act, these troop of actors are preparing a staging about Hitler, about the Nazis, and then the press comes in saying, ask that the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland asks not to put on a show because the Germans might get offended, but then a day or two later they still nevertheless attack Poland, and so everything goes, of course, to pieces. Then we jump 2 years later. Of course, other things happen, but 2 years later, a Gestapo agent is discovered in London, and somehow, when he's coming back to Warsaw to break up the underground movement, the actors find out about it and start trying to devise plots to stop him. Now, what I find interesting here is that we don't see, it's a war movie, it's a courageous act of trying to stop a Gestapo agent from blowing up the underground movement, but we don't see underground fighters, we barely see Germans in fighting the underground. What we see is diversion and how with and with comedy and with comic moves you can fight the ultimate enemy, which in this film is represented for the most part of the movie, more than half the movie. We just hear about Nazis, and we hear about Gestapo, and we hear about this Colonel Erhard, who is a fierce man who is destroying lives, shooting people at the spot, and so on and so on. So the Nazis here throughout the film, even though there are points of ridicule, are still the fierce, invincible creatures that are as they are represented in other films. I say for most of the film, because at a certain point that turns as well. Now, in the classic Hollywood structure, 3-act structure, we have of course the introduction, which is where we see all the main characters, and then we come to the plot point, which is that the German agent, the Gestapo agent, is coming to Warsaw and needs to be stopped. Here is where the second act in this classical structure begins, and here is where our actors actually come in and need to save the day. They are portrayed as basically incompetent, silly, very vain, thinking only about themselves and what their next line will be like and how the audience will react and whether they will laugh or not. They are quite out of the wits, and as thus they are posed against this machine, which is, as I said, only represented in dialogue. And so the inevitable point of the clash approaches, but then Lubitsch quite cleverly plots another diversion and puts the actor that we saw here representing a Gestapo agent as a Gestapo Colonel Erhard. And so here he needs to be quick and he needs to confront the Gestapo agent coming from London and stop him in his destruction of the resistance in Warsaw. And let us watch a short clip.
Let's go. I hate to leave the fate of my country in the hands of a hand. Send him in.
Professor, please.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Professor Seletsky, I'm glad to see you.
And I'm glad to see you, too.
Sit down, please.
Thank you very much.
I can't tell you how delighted we are to have you.
And may I say, my dear Colonel, that it's good to breathe the air of the Gestapo again. You know, you're quite famous in London, Colonel. They call you Concentration Camp Erhard.
Yes, yes. We do the concentrating and the Poles do the camping.
Yes, indeed. Well, here's the report. And that's the end of the underground movement.
Let's see. Excellent, excellent. They're as good as dead. I assume there are no supplementary documents still at the hotel.
No, that covers everything.
Good, good.
And I'm sending the duplicate on to Berlin the first thing in the morning.
The duplicate? Oh, yes, of course. The duplicate.
You ask me, it's a lot of red tape, but since they want it, well, I'm all right.
Naturally, naturally. You know, Professor, Warsaw is a dangerous place these days. But I suppose you have the papers in the hotel safe.
No, they're locked in my trunk. But the whole hotel is a safe.
Yes, of course. Naturally. I want to get the machinery started on this report right away. I'll be back in a moment.
Oh, I don't get this wrapped up. You can't. He still has some papers in his trunk. What? He's made the trunk? No, kill him. Hurry, don't. How are you going to get in his hotel? Yeah, how's he going to get in the hotel? Get back there. Keep him there. We'll try to figure something out. All right.
Well, Colonel, is there anything else you want to ask me?
Lots. Sit down, Professor.
Yes.
There are many things I want to ask you. Yes. So many things.
Well, anything you want to know, I'd only be too happy to oblige.
Thank you. So they call me Concentration Camp Erhard. You know, Professor, there's something I wanted to ask you.
Yes?
What? Oh. Well, that's the way it is. 1,000 questions on your mind, yet you can't think of anything to ask. But it will crystallize. Maybe it's something you'd like to ask me.
No, I can't think of anything, Colonel.
Oh. So they call me Concentration Camp Erhard. Well. Excuse me, man, I'll be right back. We got it.
Here, take this cover.
So the actors here are shown as completely incompetent. They can't think on their feet. They need the lines to be written for them, and they can't think of anything else but, well, what's my next line? What's my next line? The clash here ends with Gestapo agent being caught and murdered, and now they have another problem on their hand, which is the Gestapo agent is supposed to be in Warsaw and is supposed to be meeting with the real concentration camp Erhard. And so the same actor now needs to pose as a Gestapo agent, Silecki. So Lubitsch again turns the idea they haven't. You may have think that they have solved the problem because they've killed the agent and that's it. But no, now they need to find the other missing papers, and he in turn places him into the opposite role. But now he's aided and he's better off because he has the lines. Because he's just heard the lines from the real Gestapo agent, and he's now going to get them to the Gestapo column. In another nicely put twist, using the repetition as one of his mechanisms, Lubitsch here repeats, as he did just now for the third time, the same line, send him in, the guy sits at the table, and so on and so on. So he's deconstructing this whole guy behind the desk and his powerful and so on and so on. Shot-wise, this happens from tighter to wider angles, and as you can see here, it's as wide as it gets, diminishing the role of the bad guy.
Yes? Hi, Professor Silecki, sir. Come in. Didn't you understand what I told you? Did you arrest him? Why not? You have no proof? Well, that's a fine excuse. Arrest him too. Whenever you don't arrest him, how many times do I have to tell you arrest him? Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler.
Well, Professor, that's the need. Please make yourself at home. Why don't you take off your coat?
Thank you. Colonel Erhard, I can't tell you how happy I am to breathe the air of the Gestapo again.
Oh, thank you very much. Cigarette, cigar, glass of wine?
No, thank you.
There was a sudden change in my schedule. Confidentially, big news. A very old friend of yours is coming to Warsaw, the Führer. I know you'll be delighted to see the Führer again.
Who wouldn't?
That's right. How long since you've seen him, Professor?
Too long. Much too long.
Of course. Tell me, is Berchtesgaden really as beautiful as they say it is?
Yes, I think I can say that without any risk. But it isn't the architecture or the landscaping. It's the presence of the Führer that lends the real beauty to the place.
Naturally. Well, what news you bring from London?
London? Oh, yes, London. Colonel, you're quite famous in London. You know what they call you? Concentration camp Erhard.
Oh, they do they? So they call me concentration camp Erhard.
I thought you would react just that way.
So what happens with Tura and with the other actors is they completely lose the sense of what they're doing, what the big purpose is, and just he's very pleased here that he spotted the way that his character would be if he were to play a Nazi colonel. And of course, we don't have time to go through all the details, but his vanity comes up often, and he stops all the action just to ask, well, that actor, he's the very famous Polish actor, and nobody has heard of him, of course. So besides repetition and all the irony, which is obvious here because Lubitsch diminishes his protagonists all the time, and he's just slacking them with this ineptness and so on. The repetition of certain lines of dialogue, but also shots and mise en scène is very important here, and he has three main situations that he repeats. One is this, so they call me concentration camp Erhard, which goes on and on and on and on. The other is Hamlet's title words, to be or not to be, and the scene that is played out at the theater 3 times, each time to more comic effect. Also, I don't have now time to show you, but it's very curious how Lubitsch puts his famous actor Joseph Tura in the position where he needs a prompter to give him the lines of to be or not to be. Where that begins as the most famous soliloquy in the world. This type of repetition also, for me, does another thing. The film at the beginning sometimes comes off as rather pleased with itself, with these moments which are somehow almost l'artistic, with high myself and so on. But as they get repeated, especially the Shylock's Rialto monologue, Rialto scene, they gain weight, they gain additional meaning, and with this repetition, not only comic effect is given, but also meaning to some of the characters, such as the lesser actor who's playing later Shylock. I mean his monologue, which I'm going to show you now in 2 different settings. Here we go. This is just
I know it would get a laugh. You don't buy shit, Vronsky. You're going to play Hitler. I thought that was the real start of my career.
Don't worry, Vronsky. They can't keep real talent down forever.
And the day will come when you'll play Shylock.
A Rialto scene. Shakespeare must have thought of me when he wrote this. It's me. Have I not eyes? Have I not hands? Organs, senses, dimensions, affections, passions? Fed with the same food, burnt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? It moved to tears. Instead, I have to carry a spear.
That's all we do, carry a spear. Carry a spear in the first act, carry a spear in the second act.
Carry Lubitsch off the scene in the last act.
Oh, I'd love to drop that hand right in the center of the stage.
Would get a terrific laugh.
And so it seems that all they do is just for love. Now, Lubitsch is very cruel, but also very kind to his characters in this film, and indeed, as much as he mocks them, he also gives them all his love and redeems them for all their vanity, pettiness, and so on, and really builds them into heroes by the end of the film. But he does so in a very kind way. On the other hand, what he does with with the Germans is the exact opposite. He starts off, as I said, with them being depicted as these monstrosities, and ends up showing them as human in their flaws as the rest of us. I'm going to show you the third time Shylock's monologue is uttered, towards the end of the film. And then we'll go back to the third act and see how he closes off the film.
How did you get here?
I was born here.
And what made you decide to die here?
Him.
What do you want from the Fuhrer?
What does he want from us? What does he want from Poland? Why, Moses? Why? Why? Aren't we human? Have we not eyes? Have we not hands, organs, senses, dimensions, affections, passions? Fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, cooled and warmed by the same winter and summer? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? If you wrong us, shall we not revenge?
Lieutenant Slangy and Schneider.
Yes, sir.
Take charge of this man and bring him to my headquarters. I want a question. Now, men, I don't want a word to leak out about this incredible incident. Who's in charge here?
I am, sir.
How could anything like this have happened?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know, that's just it. That's how you safeguard our Fuhrer. My Fuhrer, it is my duty to advise you to leave immediately.
So, amongst other things here, we can see how they are as incompetent as others. Now, to get back to the plot and how it ends, Lubitsch does another peculiar thing. After Tura has impersonated Strzelecki, the Gestapo German agent, he manages to solve everything, and here you would expect that everything stops and we have a happy ending because the papers have been destroyed and so on and so on. But he pushes for another laugh. It's still, while the audience wants you, you need to stay on stage and deliver one more line and have them laugh some more. So curiously, they keep on pretending that he's Strzelecki, and of course they soon get discovered. But that Lubitsch uses that not only to show how inept they are in high politics, but to show how Germany's Gestapo is as inept as they are. And this is the first time this happened before, about 10 minutes before this scene that I've just shown you, but is the famous "Pull My Beard" scene where the Gestapo colonel in this concentration camp, Erhard, is shown as completely out of his words. Here we go.
Well, he should have cracked by now. Give him a little time. Let him enjoy his goose pimples.
Colonel, do you really prefer this procedure to our usual methods?
Well, I would say that intellectuals, the mental approach is sometimes more effective and much quicker.
But if he shouldn't turn out to be an intellectual?
Then we try a little physical touch.
Colonel, I don't want to hurry you, but do you think it'll be much longer?
Oh, did you get bored?
No. I tried to open up a conversation with your friend in there, but he seems to be dead.
No, really. Let's go and see. It looks like murder.
Mm-hmm. If I'm wrong, Colonel, please correct me.
But there seems to be a slight resemblance between me and your late friend. Has that struck you too? Oh, definitely, definitely. And you know, I have a terrible suspicion that one of us must be an imposter.
I hadn't thought of that, but now that you mention it, I think you're right.
No, now just for fun, Colonel. Which one of us do you think is the imposter?
Oh, I hope you won't consider me polite, Professor. But there's a general feeling in this room that it's you. Please forgive me.
Oh, certainly, certainly. Do you mind if I play detective?
Go right ahead, Professor Siletsky.
Thank you, thank you. Edmondson's London.
The real Siletsky came from London. The suit was bought in London.
You think it looks bad for me?
Terrible.
His watch is still running, which means he was killed since the real Professor Siletsky arrived in war. This really looks bad for me. You know I'm not going to get shot?
There's a distinct possibility.
And there's no doubt there was a definite purpose. He wanted to look like me?
Or you wanted to look like him.
That's right, that's right. Our hair is cut alike, and even the shape of our beards is somewhat similar.
Not similar, exactly alike. How long did you know each other?
I just met him here.
Now you're lying, plain lying. You must have observed him for several months. It takes that long to grow a beard of that kind. Very good, Schultz. Very good.
Excellent, Schultz. Except you forget I may be wearing a false beard.
Very funny. No, Professor, I tell you a better story. Maybe he is wearing a false beard.
Oh, I hardly think so.
Then why don't you convince yourself? Why don't you pull his beard?
Can't do it.
No, you can, eh? Too sensitive, eh? You can murder a man. You can kill in cold blood. But you cannot pull a man's beard.
Can't believe it.
Schultz! How dare you put me in this position? I can't rely on anybody. But Colonel, you gave the order yourself. Shifting the responsibility on me again. That's all, Schultz. Goodbye, gentlemen. Professor, I don't know how to apologize.
But, Colonel, you were only doing your duty. And if there's still the slightest doubt in your mind, why don't you pull my beard?
Oh, please, Professor.
Come on.
No.
Just one.
No, please, no. Don't rub it in. I assure you, I never believed it for 1 minute. But this Schultz. And Professor, if you could see the view.
You'd appreciate if I didn't shout it. My word.
Thank you so much.
And so he keeps on dragging, no, come on, give me another laugh, give me another laugh. And thus, I'm trying to come to a conclusion here, this is 5 o'clock already. He's trying to portray them and somehow humanize them, even though that sounds awful now, knowing what happened and so on. At the time, we need to remember again, this was end of 41, beginning of 42. It was a very brave decision, I think, and quite an effective one. It seems that the Polish people in United Kingdom during the war have were especially fond of this film. It wasn't as successful in the United States at the time, but it seems that it gave people some relief to be able to see the other side of the atrocities. This film reminded me, and I'm sure was influential in some way of other films that came later, most notably maybe Dr. Strangelove or How We Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, which was filmed at the height of Cold War, just after the Cuban crisis. Again, instead of portraying the Ruskies, the Russians, as the mean people who want to destroy the world and so on, Kubrick portrayed American generals as completely inept in stopping their own people from starting a nuclear war. Nowadays, we have, I'm sorry to say, not as many films as I would like to see, comedies, talking about the present-day problems. Some of the films that come to mind were Four Lions in the United Kingdom, treating the question of Islamic terrorists, homegrown Islamic terrorism, which was done after the bombings of the 7th of July in London, so more braver they are for that. By the same authors, a TV series that started just last year, also in Britain, called Babylon, about a completely inept London police force trying to tackle the problems of the modern day, again, terrorism and so on and so on. And on a larger scale, again, a British TV series, The Thick of It, which ran from 2005 until 2013, which deals with the ineptness of government in general. The intention here and in other films that I mentioned and others still, I think remains always the same and is deeply humanistic, even in its bitter irony. It's that we're all humans and we all make mistakes as humans, and it is healthy to laugh at the face of the enemy, especially a notorious and fierce enemy such as any totalitarian regime, which by definition lacks humor and has an innate disgust towards humor, irony, and satire, and is thus that represents their exact weak point where I believe they should be. And just for the end, allow me to rephrase the to be or not to be, and try and read it as to laugh or not to laugh. That is the question. Whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take the odds against a sea of trouble, and by opposing them. Thank you.
I also invite you to pose your questions and comments.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I would just come back to the last point that you made, this question of humanism, because for me it's quite important in comedy. But you have, I would say that you have two kinds of humanisms in comedy. One are this kind of a bad humanism, when basically you get to see that all these big shots are also deep down just human beings, you know, like they, even like to paraphrase Shylock, they also cry, they, whatever. And this, I would say, it's a kind of conservative humanism, which basically is meant for us to precisely prevent us to react against them in some way, because we need to understand them, they're just human as us and so on. And then there is another kind of humanism, which I would perhaps even call somehow differently, but I think what is at stake here, and I believe some of the commentators at the time, or perhaps a bit later, actually saw this and described this very well, because the time when this movie was shot, and you told us approximately this was the darkest moment in Europe, it was, I think, really not simply about showing them as weak human beings, but above all showing us as invincible, after all. Because, and this is, it's not a move to just accept them as they are, it is actually something that is a very strong political message, even though the way, if you just look, I don't know, outside the window or the newspaper, they're completely invincible. They have it. This is the time that they have it all, and yet this movie shows you, no, they can be big, and this is not exactly
even with our own weaknesses and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's even, I think it's a political message that is of a slightly different texture. Or if we take, for instance, Bush, he's this kind of perfect example. I mean, the ex-president who was very humorous. I mean, he was completely stupid and crazy, and he knew it, and he liked to joke about it. He had a sense of humor, and this is not necessarily, and he was very authoritarian. So you can have someone who does very bad things in the world, who has this sense of humor about himself, who all of the time reminds us that he has this sense of humor. Oh, I'm just this weak human person. So as for us to identify with his human weaknesses and let him go on with his stupid wars. So there is this, you see what I want to say? There is this kind of a slight edge when there actually, this could be used in a different way, and I think you're very right to say that in all the cases that you mentioned, like also Kubrick and so, there is this kind of a different, they are not simply ridiculed, there is something that is actually a political message that goes beyond this kind of humanization into the say they're stupid, weak human beings, and this is precisely why we should beat them down and step. I mean, there is this, so that it's not simply we are all human, but still they need to get out of the picture.
No. We still have very, very clearly who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. What we don't have is that the kind of
direct, this I really agree with you.
What we had in partisan cinema.
Not this moralistic.
In 60s and 70s in Yugoslav cinema. Ratko Polic was always a bad guy, and Batajan was always a bad guy.
And also, as you said, this kind of portraiting very often. Still now you have this kind of, if there is big enemy, you seem that you can only show the horrors also, if you want, of the concentration camps and so on. If you just insist completely just on this kind of even you cannot even show it, so bad it is. And here you have the opposite move. You show it all, you even joke about it, and it is not simply to make it go away, but precisely on the contrary, to insist on it, to really put our hands into the thing.
There's another line that was, they tried to censor it, but Lubitsch did not want to, which was, do you know, after various times posing the question, do you know the great Polish actor Joseph Tiura? And this is, no, I don't know him. And then the Gestapo guy says, yes, I know him, he did to Shakespeare what we're doing to Poland now.
But, just to add the point, I mean, what is kind of really shocking about the film, I mean, see if you agree with this, but the best jokes are aimed at the Poles, not at the Nazis. Yeah. I mean, what's very funny, there's a moral message for me in the film, it's, indeed, it's not simply to take the Nazis down and stuff, but you could say Nazis can be defeated because they're just as stupid as we are. And that's the weird move that you normally don't get, because the Poles are completely destroyed in this movie. I mean, they're vain, they're idiotic, they're incompetent, they succeed in spite of their incompetence. But I mean, the idea of making a movie with so many jokes against the Poles in 41 is actually just unbelievable, I mean, in a way, as a kind of
and it precisely, as you mentioned, it was great success in Poland,
right.
Whereas otherwhere it was really supposed to be, they didn't like it, they thought it was going too far against the Poles, precisely, which
we could go on.
No, because this is a movie that
out of time, it's precisely a question of auto-irony, and he puts himself, Lubitsch puts himself clearly on the side of the Polish. And that's what gives him the right to ridicule them, because he says this is us, this is what we are like. And also, I think the line about Shakespeare and Poland and so on was pushed and tried to they tried to cut it in the editing process. Precisely because it is now pronounced by the Gestapo officer.
Exactly.
But the thing that Lubitsch was so clever about, very, if I may say, maybe even postmodern, was it's not the Gestapo line, it's Lubitsch's line. It is him as an author who stands behind all these lines, and everything that is said is actually said by him, and that makes it okay. And that's what makes the Four Lions or the Babylon work as well. They are saying such horrible things about Muslims in those films and TV shows, and about the English as well. But it goes because of the basic underlying situation, which is this is me saying it. This is not how Gestapo see the Poles, or the other way around. And it's okay to say this because we can laugh at our expense. If we can't do that, what can we do? Thank you very much. How did I set it up for you?